right at the edge of the trail.
Okay, happy Valentine's Day. How many of you are with your sweetheart? Okay, don't be shy. Well, Jennifer and I were talking about, should we do this on Valentine's Day? And well, of course, it's a romantic story, right? So you'll learn about that in a bit. A couple things, some housekeeping things. The bathrooms are over there. The beer is over there. You can indulge in that if you'd like. We patronize Helix Brewing. I know they would appreciate it. They let us use this room any Wednesday night of the year that we want to do a couple things. One is to inform people. One is to inspire people to get out. And that's something that A16 has done really since day one, back in the early 60s. So it's neat to be able to, we've closed the stores, but it's neat to be able to continue to inform and inspire people to get out and have adventures. And it's extra special to have this presentation tonight for a couple of reasons. But before I get into that, I want to make sure that everyone knows who's been to the Banff Mountain Film Festival before. Banff Mountain Film Festival. Not very many. Okay. Okay. Who has been to the Banff Mountain Film Festival? Okay. Still the same count. But, so you're in for a treat if you haven't gone. It's something that A16 would sponsor, and we now still promote it, and former employees of ours have taken over the San Diego showings, but it's a film festival about outdoor films, and they're designed to inspire and excite. It's kind of one of those things you have to put your seatbelt on for others, and you have to pull out the tissue paper for or Kleenex for others. It's about mountain culture, and there's about 30 films that they'll be showing. 30 over the course of 3 nights. So March 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, the La Paloma. I think they've already sold out some tickets down there. Not the La Paloma, and the Natural History Museum. And then another 3 nights the next weekend at the La Paloma. Who's been to the La Paloma? It's a great old theater from 500 years ago. It's just a wonderful old theater, and it's just a hoot. The films are anywhere from 2 minutes to an hour, and it's just a really fun night. So check it out. You can go to a16.com. You can go to BanffMountainFilms.com. You can find it, and I would just highly recommend it. Michael Moriarty is over here. He's our film master, and Mike generously donates his time and his talent to film all the Wild Wednesday productions that we have, those presentations that we have, and we put them online. So they're online. You can get them through A16. It'll take you over to Mike's company, which is Pine Media, and we're developing quite a selection of presentations over the last year and a half or so, and Mike just does a wonderful job of reproducing them so the whole world can hear what we're up to here. With that, how am I going here? A little bit of half hour. I'm not known for my quick introductions. Tonight, we're just so honored to have our presenters here. A little backstory on this. How many of you have heard of a company called Sunbelt Publications? Okay. A few of the owners know about it, right?
I used to stock them.
Yeah, that's right. Dale is an A16er, and they were one of our vendors, and they were in El Cajon for many years, and it was started in the 80s, right? Am I right on that? By Diana and Lowell Lindsay, who are here tonight. And they focused, hopefully I'll get this right, but they focused on publishing and distributing books about the natural environment, primarily in Southern California and Baja California, in this region, and also history of the natural, some of the natural areas. And I probably butchered that, but it was a remarkable company that they have since sold just recently to some new owners, and they're here as well.
Oh, wow.
And Jennifer Redmond here, our presenter tonight, was their editor. So I like to say that Sunbelt Publications did more to educate through their selling of books and the masterful way that they did it, and their team of certainly, and the authors that they work with. They did more to educate and inspire people about the regions, natural history, and where to go than anyone else in the free world. Wow. You can put that on your business card. And Jennifer was a part of that team. Jennifer is here tonight, as you know, to talk about her new book that she's just got. It's out now, and you can see it over here on the table. And if you're so inclined, you'll be able to buy one tonight. About her new book, about her honeymoon, Valentine's Day, get that connection, with a guy named Russell. She's going to tell the story. I'm not. But we're so thrilled to have the connection of Sunbelt Publication coming back home here, because it's in a way. Jennifer is, and like I said, she's an editor at large with the new Sunbelt Publication. Who are the new owners out here? Yep. And a hugely talented person. And her sweetheart is, he didn't write this book, but he had a lot to do with it, you'll know. He is an author. He is a teacher, which is really cool. He is an artist. And I learned tonight earlier that he's also an actor. So he's a man of many talents. And he is here to kind of kick things off. And then you're going to hear from Jennifer in a little bit. Okay? All right. Here we go.
Thanks, John.
I'd like to first of all thank Adventure 16 and the Helix Brewery for having us this evening, and you, and you folks for coming out, adventuring out here on such a very dangerous evening, adventurous evening. Anyway, I was thinking earlier about the connection between beer and adventure. Beer is a great asset when you're planning adventure, and certainly an asset during the production of an adventure. But beyond that, I was wondering what was the start of it? What's the spark that gets all this going? The proverbial gasoline that goes onto the fire. And the spark for me, oddly enough, because this is all about adventure, happened when I was this will be brief, back in high school, my last year of high school, and I was diagnosed with a fatal lymph disease where, and I discovered this one evening when the doctor was talking to my parents outside my door and explaining that what it was like in my imminent demise, which is not something I was very fond of doing. But the experience that I had sparked something that had changed my life. It was literally one of those learning moments that you have that changed every particular thing that I thought about. So it was what I would consider one of those big moments in life. The second big moment in life was moving on a few years and growing a little bit older and taking sailing lessons, where I got I did all right, and I bought a little 26-foot sailboat, which will feature in this story. I took this boat solo sailing up and down the coast of California, visiting the the various islands and anchorages along the coast, and then came back. Where I then, a few years later, ran into this lovely lass to my side here. And it was at that point I came into the next phase of my life where we decided to take a trip that you will be hearing about this evening. And it involves the first year of our marriage, the first year out of 33 years that we're still on our boat. So we've had a little bit of experience about sailing, and let's see, we've always had really fine adventures, but they were always fueled by a little bit of careful use of beer. So it all comes back to beer. So we can start this adventure. Oh, well, here we go. I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer, but you can see that this is the route that we took from San Diego, and we went up into the Sea of Cortez, down along the Central America, up along through the Caribbean, and then up along what is euphemistically known as the Redneck Riviera, and then trucked the boat across, and we liked it so much we did it again. So, as you do. We're sharing.
The next thing you're wondering is, how did this all begin? It began in New York City, where I was living, and I was in theater in those days. Russell and I had met at the Old Globe Theater here in San Diego. And it's funny because when Russell told that story, I was remembering that years ago we came across an essay he wrote in high school, and he wrote about how he was going to marry a woman and travel the world. And I read it and went, wow, you predicted all of this, and I didn't know anything about it. But anyway, we went out sailing in San Diego, and I said, well, you know, all of this proposal and everything is very nice, but I live in New York City and you live here, so how's that going to work out? And he said, I'll move to New York. And that's when I knew it was love, because he was going to give up San Diego and come to New York to be with me. So he started talking to me one day, and I said, what would you do if you could do anything? And the snow was falling, and he started talking about a place called Baja, California, and about how nice and warm it was, and how we could go and sail down in the Sea of Cortez. And I said, tell me more. So that was how it all began. So the next thing we knew, we were here in San Diego, and these crazy kids were getting ready to take off. You want to do the next stage?
Well, you can see that it's a fairly small boat, and you can see that you know, it looked very pretty, though. It was one of the arguably someone said it was arguably the prettiest Columbia 26 on the coast of California. But you'll see why in just a sec. But you also see that Jennifer's brought us some safety devices. That's a rubber ducky there that she carries around.
Adventure.
Yes, it's an adventure. So, and her grandmother had a few ideas about that too.
Oh, friends of ours would always say, like, oh, are you worried about banditos, or are you worried about this or the weather or whatever? And we're like, no, we're not worried. But my grandmother said, well, at least she's a good swimmer. That was the vote of confidence that I got, because of course I knew nothing about sailing at the time. I had literally never been overnight on a boat when we took off for Cabo San Lucas.
May I ask how many people here are sailors?
We know you are.
Okay. So you know that this is not the normal type of boat that one takes on a trip of this duration, right? Right. It is euphemistically known as a day sailor, right? But we did, in fact, day sail day after day.
Day after day after day.
And it went on for years, you know. Nonetheless.
So off we went.
So off we went.
And as Russell said, it really was a beautiful boat. Our very first anchorage, which was Todos Santos Island off of Ensenada, we went off, hiked around, we came back, and there's a powerboat sitting in our beautiful little romantic anchorage. We were kind of mad. And then we row up, and Russell goes, that's John Raines and Pat Raines. And they're very famous boat skippers. And so they ended up taking this picture, and it ended up on the cover of a Cruising World supplement. So we thought, wow, we're doing pretty good for a first night out sailing.
Just in case you think I'm crazy, though, I did spend about 3 years before I married Jennifer fixing this boat up, not only just painting it, but building up, beefing it up, and with brand new rigging and upsized rigging and solar panels and all kinds of different things and storage units that weren't in the boat, and making sure the engine was in good shape, and tons of other things, thinking I was going to go off on my own, but I was surprised that way. But
And I was clever enough to miss all that.
I was just going to say, Jennifer we got married and she stepped on the boat and off we went.
Columbia 26 is a very small boat, and when my grandmother
right.
saw me standing on it, she looked at me, she looked at the boat, she looked at Russell and said, "Did you measure her?" Because the boat ceiling is like this, so.
Yeah, very small, very small.
So there we are off in the distance. We took off on November 11th of 1989, and we were sailing up south naturally in the kelp. And I believe, we had our first overnight, my first overnight ever overnight watch, that is. I slept on the boat, of course. Took us to the Islas.
Oh, San Martin?
No.
Right outside here.
No, the one with the seals on them.
Oh, the Bonitos.
Islas San Benitos. Thank you. That's why we're a team.
They're right there.
And they're so tiny you
Hard
can't even
to
see them
see.
there. We were doing celestial navigation because we didn't have a GPS in those days. So we did the celestial navigation with a sextant, and Russell would do the shot and call out the numbers, and I would get the book out, and we'd find ourselves on the chart, and eventually we actually found those little fly specks on the chart too. And it was a life-changing night, needless to say.
That's that first adventure.
Yes, this was the first adventure, because I went from, oh my God, how am I going to get through this night? I'm going to panic and run downstairs and tell him I can't do this because there's like too much space out here and it's like black and it's just frightening. But it all worked out. By dawn, I was happy, and especially because we saw the islands.
So you went from Todos to Bonitos in one
No.
leg?
We went from, we came down, I should have mentioned, we were going along the coast. We stopped every night, which was, I think, a genius idea, because once again, I didn't know anything about sailing. And so we would stop every night and we would cook and, we'd relax and we'd sleep, and, which you can't always do underway. And so that made a big difference for somebody who was such a newbie. But that was the first jump. That was from just below Turtle Bay. To, not Turtle Bay, St. Quentin or something. Anyway.
Most people don't do that. I shouldn't wave this. Most people don't do that. They go directly either to Turtle Bay in one jump, like the Baja that you guys may have heard of. But it's really easy to go down the coast, the west coast of Baja, and stop every night. I mean, sometimes it takes you way out of your way, and we avoided that most of the time, but because we were trying to make at least a semi-straight route. But despite what most people think, you can pull in there and have a really great time, and they're beautiful anchorages.
And sometimes seals.
Yes.
Sometimes a welcoming committee.
San Benitos. There you go.
Oh, the seals kept us up all night, and we thought it was the Canadians who were anchored by us, and we were so impressed by their party prowess. And the next morning they were like, "What are you talking about? We didn't have a party. It's the seals on the beach all night long." And we thought, man, these Canadians know how to party. But then the next morning, as you can tell, they're not dead. They're just dead tired. But they were
all.
We enjoyed walking around and checking everything out, and that's. Just another fabulous anchorage. It is, of course, cold at that time of the year. It's not, sunny. But the next jump was, on our way to Cabo San Lucas. We went to Bahia Santa Maria.
That's,
And
right there. Now, those
they're-
big dips in the Baja are the things where you have to make the big, long jumps of overnight things. And that was, of course, exciting for Jennifer, who was new at sailing. Exciting for me too when
and
I
we
went to
s-
sleep
and we
to
let
see if
the-
I'd wake up.
Speaking of adventures, we skip over the adventure of checking in at Cabo San Lucas because, you know, you don't need that kind of adventure in this kind of a presentation. But the next thing we knew, we were heading north up into the Sea of Cortez, and that is where it does. People that know are nodding. Yeah, that's when it gets very adventurous because, of course, the wind and the waves and everything are coming against you, and you're going north into the wind and the waves. But luckily, you can once again stop and have a beautiful anchorage and a nice white sand beach and take a hike and forget about your troubles for a day before you go north again.
It is really, it's, this is kind of weird.
Well, you've got to
it
get
is.
closer to it.
Hello?
It is interesting that each time we've went around Cabo San Lucas, each time, and we've been around it a few times, every time we've done this, the weather has changed completely. I mean, it's gone from cold to baskingly wonderful, from warm to really super breezy. It just makes a huge difference once you make that corner.
You'd think it was a cape.
Yeah. That last slide was
Sorry.
Las Frailes, where now that was back in 1989, but now I understand there's big condos along that way. So,
Some sort of
but you know, I don't want to ruin it for anybody. You wouldn't know the difference if it was the first time you were there. But it's
This is a
Baja's
little bit
growing
of
up.
whoa. This is
I
a
gotta
little
watch
bit of a
that.
time capsule of Baja once upon a time. So, and then we headed north up to La Paz, which you can see there amongst the islands. We have a lot of slides, so I'm not going to linger on every one. These are the islands off of La Paz, which are, of course, spectacular. And the good news is, speaking of the time capsule, that these are all now protected by the Mexican government. They're all part of a island marine park.
Right.
And so people can still go to the islands, you can still anchor, you can still take tours out there, but people can't just go ashore and they can't take their dogs and they can't, like, you know, eat things and shoot them and capture them and all that kind of good stuff that we like to do when we go to other countries. So anyway, there's adventure. And I'm always reminded with this picture, even in spite of how beautiful it is, that Russell would say, boy, there's always something ready to bite you or sting you or stick you or stab you, no matter how beautiful it is.
Yeah.
But that's one of the many anchorages. And no, there is no filter used for this red dirt, red earth is just incredible next to that aqua water. And I believe that Russell was moved to, he was doing paintings. He had been, I think we said, an illustrator. So he was doing paintings. And occasionally he would find something to draw like that. So that's one of the paintings he did called Harbinger. Wow. And so he would get up in the morning and paint out in the cockpit, and I would sit there and go, I want to have something to do too. But that's the boat, and that is on the flyleaf of the new book. I was actually working with the editor who edited this book for 3 months, and then she said, oh, I want to see some pictures, and I sent it, and she goes, oh my God, it's a really small boat. I was like, well, what did you think I was saying? She was like, it's like really small. Yes, it's very small. But we were very happy. Oh, we still are very happy. We're in a slightly larger boat, which helps too. But we had run into some people who were hiding back there in their boat, and they came out. Good friends will take a picture of you at dawn, even though they're getting ready to take another trip that day. And
Oh,
Russell
right.
can take this one. Stern anchoring.
Well, this is Honeymoon Cove, actually, in near Loreto, or Puerto Escondido. I assume you've been there in Honeymoon Cove. Well, I can see why. It's a lovely spot. That was a cove that's kind of small, and you have to run a stern anchor off of your boat, which means you have one anchor going into the cove and one anchor way the hell out into the Deirdre here.
To keep you from swinging into the rocks.
Right. So I got up when we got ready to go and proceeded out in our tiny little inflatable and was greeted by a whale that was concerned with the fact that I was interfering with her motherly duties with her.
juvenile
offspring.
whale.
So she was pretty pissed off, and she kept zooming around me, which I thought this could be a sort of Melvillian end of me. But
I took this shot
yeah,
from our boat,
But here you go.
but luckily the kayaker who's right there took that shot.
Yeah, that was my view of it.
That's
which
Mama
looks a
Whale
little-
saying, back
Yeah.
up.
Anything
Back
with a
off.
large fin coming at you is, I've learned over the years, is not a good thing. So I got out of there fairly quickly, but I got pictures.
You
So
don't-
okay, there you go.
You don't argue with a 70-foot fin whale. You
No.
just say, yes, Mama, I'm getting out of your way. So we continued north we were in Loretto, and we were up in the big bay there is Conception. And then
Right in here.
we were heading further north. This is San Juanico, and everybody's nodding. That's been down there. One of the most beautiful places on the planet Earth. And clear water, as you can see. Once again, an inspiration for a beautiful painting.
So,
And we spent many a lovely day there. I couldn't resist jumping in the water because I see water like that and I'm in it. And that was Conception. As we went further
right.
up, we're in Conception Bay. Now, Conception Bay is interesting because you're there, with just a few boats, and it looks like you're in a deserted, South Pacific island, and then you go to shore and it's cheek and jowl, Mexican gringos, everything, every kind of music, every kind of RV, every kind of van, every kind of tent, and everything and it's all there every summer day, just kind of a traveling picnic. And lovely Santa Rosalia.
this is the. Does that say?
It's July, I believe.
Okay.
Or maybe that's August, I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Anyway, whether it's August or July, it's damn hot there.
This is when Baja's really Baja.
Yeah, that's yeah.
In July, because it was Russell's birthday.
How long?
In Concepcion, men. Don't touch me.
Right, exactly, yes.
Oh
Nobody
yeah,
is gonna
we can
conceive.
show you some honeymoon sex.
Yes, this was
Right here.
This was known amongst the cruisers as sex in summer in the Sea of Cortez. Get ready. That's enough. That was
was it?
lovely. How was that for you?
Come on.
Just getting.
It's Wild Wednesday, Come
Just
on.
standing up from your bench seat was enough to make you break out into a sweat. So there's the preferred outfit for that time of the year, which is basically the bikini and or nothing. But I was at a dock, so bikini, and cleaning everything because we hadn't been in a dock. We hadn't been at a dock in all of this time. We'd been anchoring and out at the islands and
We're on an adventure.
We're on an adventure. I get a theme. There's a theme going here. And there's Rusty up on the foredeck changing sails. I think we had 9 sail changes one day on a summer day because we called it the Sea of Madness. The minute you get everything set, the wind would shift and go a different way. And then you would change everything and get it all set, and then the wind would shift again 180 degrees.
For those of you interested in boats, the boat was pretty well set up with sails. It did not have a roller furling, but it did have about 6 different sails. A drifter, which is really thin sail, like a spinnaker almost, and a 180, which is a big sail, big white sail, then a 150, which is a little smaller, 125, a 110, these are getting smaller, and then there was a storm sail, and then that was it. But all these sails were in bags up in the front part of our V berth where we were sleeping, so we were literally sleeping with bags of sails, but it was cheery.
So needless to say, 9 sail changes is a lot of work.
And you use every one.
And there's that's the other preferred outfit for summer in the Sea of Cortez. But needless to say, I'm being very intellectual in reading because that's the kind of gal I am.
Well, for those interested, we do the instrumentation on the boat. Besides my bride, we had a clock, and we had a real old-fashioned fathometer here, and that's a radio directional finder. They don't make these anymore, where you could tune into an appropriate Mexican station, and sort of figure, that's where Guaymas is, or that's where La Paz is. And in the middle of the night, sometimes it would come in handy. Like Jenny said, we didn't have any GPS because, well, at this point, they weren't really available for us. So we're doing nothing but celestial navigation and
There's the
dead
compass.
reckoning. Yeah.
Compass?
It was a very simple boat,
Very simple.
but we never got lost, luckily.
Go ahead.
At least I don't think so. This is a typical yacht club grouping in Puerto Escondido, or in the environs of Puerto Escondido, where they're having a typical party. And I believe that's the Commodore with the hat and various officials at the yacht club, which it was also known as the crab drag races or something. I'm going to get caught up in that.
Another one of those famous drinking club with a sailing sailing problem. Yes, right. Drinking club with a sailing problem. I knew I could do that. But yes, there were many cocktails consumed.
Typical adventurers.
This is how you deck out your boat when it's July in Puerto Escondido, and you're trying to get every bit of wind you can, so that's a wind scoop up there in the front. And Russell's painting in the cockpit, so we've got the covers over the top, and then usually there's one piece of cloth that you move around as the sun moves, so that you're always shaded. That's part of the adventure, And somebody took that picture of us, and we're like, unbelievably young. But we were having a good time. And occasionally somebody takes a picture of you when you have your towels out there drying. Kind of ruins the look, but that up there is the famous gorilla. And the gorilla, I think it was in the previous picture too. Can't quite see it as well. Yeah. But the gorilla is known to the locals of Loreto as the big ape that's up there in the mountains. It keeps the bad weather away. So he's up there like King Kong saying, nope, stay back. And they haven't had a hurricane there in many, many, many years, so he's doing a good job. And that was a picture Russell did of another friend's boat. And while he was doing art, I was also doing art, a little bit more like, grade school kind of art, but I really enjoyed doing I'd sit there and kind of meditate while I played with the various stones and things and make little pictures. And somewhere along this way.
Well, I did want to say while you're adventuring, it's really good to have something that you're interested in doing besides sail the boat.
Artwork.
Well, there was artwork, but which I managed to pull off. But there were people there that were learning Spanish, or there were people there that were geology, and there were people there doing all kinds of things. And that was really what we discovered made the the adventurous crowd that we ran into down there really interesting. Some people were only interested in beer, which was fine, because there were some excellent beers. But we discovered that sailing and venturing and wandering and wondering what you're doing, it was a really great adjunct to the trip. It was really important to stay in touch with things.
I think a lot of times people think, I'm working and I'm really tired of working. I want to not work, so I'm going to go off on a boat and I'm just going to be on a boat. And so there's no real plan to do anything, and they get down there and they're either bored or frustrated, or bored and frustrated. And so a lot of times, unfortunately, people end up, flying back from Cabo San Lucas or Loreto because they're just tired of it. along the way, as you can see, we picked up not just another dinghy, but a little critter there that followed us home one night. And I said, "It's raining, honey. We have to bring this puppy home just for tonight, honey. I promise." So Charlie was with us for 12 years and became everybody's favorite Mexican boat dog. And that was a fun addition, and it kind of signaled a big sea change, can I use that phrase, in our relationship, where we became a family of sorts.
When I look at this picture, I realize that was our entire estate at the time. We had a small boat, and we had a dinghy, and we had a little inflatable that our dog rode around. And that was it. It was a very simple life.
So once we had our crew member, we headed from the Sea of Cortez, across the Sea of Cortez to the mainland, and explored the mainland of Mexico, which of course was also wonderful. And along the way, I had been writing, and that was kind of becoming a thing for me, that I was figuring out that maybe I didn't need to go back to New York City and try to struggle to be an actress, and that I could, kind of have my own creative outlet. And of course, Russell was painting. People always want to know, how did you afford to do this? Because we had originally gone down for 3 months. We stayed for a year. And then we went to the mainland and stayed another 6 months, went through the Panama Canal. You'll see that later. And we basically just ate a lot of rice and beans. We didn't go out a lot. We didn't do anything but be on our boat, which was pretty wonderful. We didn't need to go out and party. We could party right there on the boat. And so when we got back, Russell sold a lot of those paintings that you've seen, and that was
Well, a boat at anchor always has the world's greatest view of wherever you are. So,
like that.
that was pretty nice.
That was in
Correas.
Correas. And that was one of my favorites of
I haven't
Russell's,
seen these all.
which was
You should look at these. I haven't
now
seen
lives
these
in
a lot.
Reno, Nevada. So they're all like little children we've sent off into the world. And that was in Oaxaca. One of the things we got to do was, when we got to the mainland, is we left the boat in a nice little anchorage in Puerto Angel, and we got a dog sitter and a boat sitter, and we went inland. And so we went to Oaxaca mostly because it's an incredibly cool city, but also because of the ruins at Monte Alban, which we really wanted to see some of the ancient Mexican surroundings. That was not the ancient Mexican surroundings, but that's Russell navigating our way.
Sort of an ancient Mexican.
Like we said, we're doing celestial navigation, and so we're always advancing our position with the little compass and the pencil. And now we're getting down to where we took off from Mexico, southern Mexico, heading for the Panama Canal. And at the time, more?
Oh, go ahead.
At the time, Americans weren't super popular down there. It was early 91, and we had just either invaded or discovered Panama, depending on who you were talking to. They were pretty sure we had invaded. And anyway, no politics. But anyway, it was very odd when we were off the coast of Honduras, because it wasn't a place that they didn't really want you landing. So we took off from the Tehuantepec. Most boaters have heard of the Tehuantepec. We sailed across the Tehuantepec with no problem. The big scary stories and all of that didn't come true. But no one had told us about the exact same feature of geography off of Nicaragua, which is a low point with a big lake called the Papagayos. And the Papagayo winds came up, and we were sailing about 5 miles offshore, and all of a sudden it went from being like 12 knots to like 22 knots, and just like in seconds. And Russell said, "Oh, we're going to shore, we're going to go in there and anchor." And I was thinking, "No, come on, we finally have wind, let's go faster." Not smart, because it's like next stop Tahiti, it will blow you a long way. So we went in and we anchored just outside of the surf line, and we were there 4 or 5 days because the wind never stopped blowing. And it topped out our windometer, what do you call it? Anerodometer, pegged out at 60. So it was blowing
It was
out
over 60.
steadily for days, and it never stopped. And the anchor line was like you could get a good D sharp out of it, like boing.
And it was like living in a washing machine, the boat, because you're bouncing around like that. And it's very interesting.
We
It's a
played-
test for your marriage.
We played a lot of poker, and we actually ate the decorative rice and beans, that you have in the little jars. We were like down to the stems and the seeds. I mean, it was like there was nothing to eat. So
Well, and just as an illustration about how kind of dangerous this area was, we traveled this route with 3 boats. And we got here, and another boat was slightly outside of us, a bigger boat, and that boat was completely destroyed by this wind. And the boat sank. The people had to be picked up by a freighter, and they ended up in Florida
Luckily.
via the freighter.
luckily, they were picked up by a freighter. 'Cause they would've
And the other boat, another boat that was with us made it to Costa Rica, but didn't know where we were. So after 5 days, they assumed that we were just gone because we were the smallest boat. So everybody figured we were.
if this
history.
huge yacht had sunk, obviously we had sunk.
Yeah. So that was very interesting. As a side note, should I tell them the story? As a side note, the people that were picked up by the freighter, when your time's up, your time's up. This is not good, but it's part of the adventure, I guess. The men
They were
penniless at this point because they had lost this huge boat that they had invested everything in, and they ended up in Florida where he got a job in a 7-Eleven. One night he was held up, and the man got shot dead for $8 in the till. So it was one of the weirdest stories that we ran into. But again, this is an area that's not known for dangerous winds. So if you're planning a trip down there, just be a little bit careful. Yeah.
But it was very strange to be listening to the radio and be hearing emergency calls to a boat that you'd just been sitting on their boat having dinner with them, and they're saying 2 souls have been rescued, and you're like, 2 souls? Oh no. That's like,
We know
I mean,
those
it's
souls.
better that 2 souls are rescued, but it's just a very creepy thing to hear over the radio. That was actually, they put out a call on VHF that somehow skipped to somebody, and somebody set out a ham call to like Alaska, and somebody called. It was just crazy how it happened, but some Panamanian freighter was going by and picked them up. Otherwise, they'd have both been dead. And we got to go to Costa Rica, where we were greeted by the people who thought we were dead, and everybody was very happy to see us.
Yes.
That was kind of fun. And Costa Rica was beautiful, and we enjoyed it. And then, this year and a half kind of came to an end with going through the Panama Canal, which was pretty cool. And I'm wearing my Over the Line t-shirt, San Diego.
Yeah.
San Diego girl in the house. Had to do it. And Russell's looking very, very salty, going through Gatun. That was when we got to, when the private yachts got
Those
to.
were the shorts of the era.
I'm telling you. And boy, do we miss that era. But we got to spend the night in Gatun Lake, which is a freshwater lake, and that was pretty cool. So everything got washed. And then we made the jump from there to Florida, but we were actually heading for the Dry Tortugas. We did stop in a Colombian island.
Yeah, we did this in one jump, which is pretty insane. But my mother got sick, so we had to go to Florida PDQ. And we figured, well, we can sail straight up here, no problem. But about the time we got here, we were hit with what is euphemistically called a low pressure system, where the wind was blowing about 45 knots, and it was blowing us kind of sideways. And we were trying for that, Dry Tortugas at the very end, but we couldn't make it. So we're getting forced farther up Florida. And we only had 2 charts. One was for the Dry Tortuga, and one was for Tampa. So Tampa was it, right?
Well, luckily, that's where we ended up. That we was lucky we had a chart. But
This was our This was our hardest period of sailing, hands down, because it was just blowing night and day, 40 knots. And we would sleep for, a minute or two. I mean, literally, you'd be sleeping for 20 minutes, and then you'd wake up because you hear voices in the rigging, calling your name, and you'd go, "What do you want?" And,
and usually the person at the tiller says, "What do you mean? What were you saying? I wasn't saying anything. What do you mean?" Because you're always hearing these squeaking, weird things.
happened to our thing?
Everything gets magnified by the fact that you're exhausted, and so you're just tired.
Oh.
And I think at one point, well, it's so
Did it
quiet
die?
now. I don't think. Do you need the
Oh,
mic?
great.
Okay.
No, it's much easier.
You're so tired and so wet. And it's, of course, Florida, so it's 90 degrees and about 90% humidity. So every few minutes you go, oh, I can unzip this foul weather gear. I'm going to be fine. And that's just when the wave comes over and drenches you. And you think, okay, that's great. And then you just go down and lie there in your wet outfit with your wet thing over the top of you going, why did I think this was going to be fun?
Oh, and then there was the time you left the hatch open a little bit to get some air. And of course, the boat's going up
Goes
and
up
down, up and down. And then it goes down and then up and then down. And then the hatch goes like that. And a wave comes in the hatch, flooding the entire boat. Where Jennifer's on the bottom of it. It's
Every
funny
time
now.
the boat moves, this little wave of water
Yeah,
goes
it's
from
lovely.
side to side, and the dog is lying under the bed just going, I should have stayed in La Paz. I should have stayed in La Paz. What was I thinking? They look like rich gringos.
The other weird thing is that the depth of the water out here is
you can see.
about 200 miles off of shore from Florida is 30 feet. And it keeps, and that doesn't really help when you're in the middle of a 40-knot storm.
So it's all really
the
bouncy.
waves were just a little bit out of control. But, that was the only time one thing broke on this little boat.
The big system failure.
Yeah, we lost a cotter pin on the lee side of the boat where it pulled out a pin in one of the lower shrouds. It's one of the wires that hold the mast up. So of course it was it was one of those moments where you go, okay, the boat's falling apart now because
Is the whole mast going to fall down next?
Yeah, but but fortunately the pin, Jesus loves Rusty, right? The pin fell on the deck. I managed to find the pin and the cotter pin and insert it back in, and it was okay.
Later.
But and also it was on the lee side of the boat where it was leaning, so the pressure was off on one side. So if you're ever on that kind of thing,
Yeah,
remember
you
to
don't
adjust
think
your-
about the fact that something loose is where it's going to work, and
Yeah.
that's where you're going to get the wear.
But this little boat, after all that time, that was the only problem we ever had.
I finally get a good picture that I took. So there's Charlie and Russell, hard at work, with Watchie in the background. And that's the white sand beaches of Destin, Florida, AKA the Redneck Riviera.
How long was your 3 days from the
7.
up to Tampa?
7.
7.
Yeah,
You booked.
yeah. Oh, I'm
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
that was from San Andreas. I'm sorry.
Well, that's a little
San
island
Andreas
just
is like
outside
100
of
miles
Panama.
from the canal. So yeah.
Well, the current's going with you. I mean, if you go through that Yucatan Channel, the current's about an 8-knot current. So our little boat was going about 8 or 9. Of course, it was blowing like hell.
It was the
So
only time we
we're
ever
moving.
did 150 miles in 24 hours on that little boat.
Yeah.
Oh, and I'm sorry, that was us in Bradenton, Florida, where I got a job as cocktail waitress and then became a bartender because I like to move up in the ladder, I can always move up in the ladder. And Russell was painting and stretching his paintings and flew home to make sure Mom was fine. She was immediately fine as soon as he was back in the United States. We don't know why, but she was. And then we decided we were not going to go to New York, as had previously been planned, but we would instead head back to San Diego and go back to Baja, because we realized as the further we went and the more we talked to people that had been around the world, they were like, Baja's the greatest cruising grounds in the world, and you just left after a year. And we said, yeah, we're going to go back. And so we did. We got it on we went along the Intercoastal Waterway.
Yeah, the Southern Intercoastal Waterway, which runs, as we say, across the Redneck Riviera. They call it that. So, you know, we're not being disparaging here. A typical place that you pull in and have oysters. I mean, they're just the friendliest people there. I've never run into more friendly people. We would pull into a marina or a place like this, and there'd invariably be somebody standing there going, "Where y'all from?" And then we go, "We're from California." And they go, "Oh, you come a long way." And then you want my car to go to the store? And yeah, well,
Okay.
geez. And so here's keys. See you later. Come back and give them to me when you come back.
You guys want to go on a
Just
tour? We'll show you
love
all the
those
mayors
people.
around here, and they took us on tours. They brought us home for dinner. Unbelievable. It was great.
Yeah. Well,
And then
not that they're
this is one of the fun things about being in the intercoastal waterway is you're sharing it with the biggest boats in the world, with, you know, these huge tankers and stuff. And invariably you run aground because it's shallow, and you sit there going, "I think we're aground." "No, we're not." "Yeah, we are." "I think we are." And then you wait for the big boat to come, and it displaces all the water exactly, and off the ground you are.
Just surf off.
So, I know this was supposed to be about Baja, and we're having more fun over here, but yeah, that's kind of set up there for going along the intercoastal. So now we're in 1992, and Russell's trying to get the line set up for us to go through a lock. There are many locks in fun places and bridges. Pleasure craft only.
The locks are particularly fun because you have to talk on the radio to the folks that, Louisiana folks that y'all can't understand the damn thing they're saying. Jennifer can mimic them a little better than I can, so it's...
We'd say, bridge tender, this is Watchfire. And we'd like to go through the lock, and we'd get back something like, "Hello, now, Watchfire, Tabon, Danamama." Excuse me?
Be right there.
Come back? Okay, we're going through the bridge then? I have no idea what you said.
So one
But we
blind
just
that
go,
goes
they lift it up and we go. Assuming that's what they meant. Taking it on
in
the
their
tube.
minds.
And then we came back, as you saw in the first chart there, we came back, we circumnavigated Mexico because we went down through the water, came back on the land, and came back on the Highway 8. Well, 10 to the 8. And that worked out. So there we are, back from where we started, just like 6 slips away on the same dock in Harbor Island. And we're looking very tan and very blonde.
And about 200 pounds lighter.
Or at least 100 between us. Yes, exactly. And we had also discovered something in the Sea of Cortez, which is painting a yacht navy blue in the summertime is a really bad idea because it's about 20 degrees hotter below decks, and they're saying we know that. So we painted it what we call camp color, because then you never have to dust. You know, everything's that color in Mexico, and we painted our bus that color too. We had a VW bus that made the trip down. So we're getting ready to go again, and there we are waving at our friends going around Tom Ham's lighthouse, I think, and saying bye-bye. And then there we are again.
Like magic.
So we'll wrap it up with one more slide here before, and this is when we started doing Sea of Cortez review.
You guys
which
may
is, of
remember
course,
that.
what led us to Sunbelt, and the stories go on. And some of the stories that were in Sea of Cortez review are actually turned into whole chapters in the book that's out now. This was our distribution system. Hey, you want a magazine? And we were just going around Baja in the new boat, and then we took it across the Sea of Cortez to San Carlos, Guaymas.
We bought a beater RV to tow this boat this time on our own. You know, it was kind of cool.
More adventures.
It worked. It worked. It worked. It worked. It had a little problem with
Vapor
heating,
lock.
vapor lock. You had to stop at about every stop sign. But
Well, it was 120 degrees
Usually-
in Tucson when we went through, so you can't really blame the RV. But that's us back in San Diego in our new boat.
Yes.
The somewhat sad story about Little Watchy was that we brought it back, we trucked it here, we were going to put it in the boatyard and fix it up so that we could sell it to get a bigger boat. So our friends up in Harbison Canyon said, bring it up here. You can put it right next to our barn. And so we did in September of 2003. And in October of 2003, all the San Diegans are nodding. It was all reduced to ashes. The boat, the trailer, the barn, their house, the VW, and everything but the RV and the which we lived in at the Lindsay's for a couple of weeks, as I recall. Yeah, so low points but high points because that money bought this boat. So it all worked out, and don't feel bad because we didn't have to sell the boat. Imagine how hard that would have been.
yeah, and the good news is the fire got rid of all our storage, which was really great. You know, because people start piling up storage, and when it's gone, you know, and then
And they
you're ready
only-
for another adventure.
When everybody said, it's never going to come up this canyon, I've been here 50 years, it's never going to come up this canyon. Exactly, right? They always say that. But I said, I'm taking the box from the storage that has our photo albums, and I'm putting them in the back of the Toyota. Otherwise, we would not have any of these photos.
Oh, that's right.
Always take your photos, as Carol knows. Exactly. So I was just going to
Yeah.
say, sorry?
Did you work, take odd jobs while you were out and about?
No, because most of the time we spent in Mexico, which we couldn't legally work or sell paintings, so we didn't do anything. We produced product, as they say. I was writing stories that eventually I sold a story to Cruising World and to Latitude and to Sail and to Dog Fancy, the story of getting a dog. And of course.
As you do.
And then, and then of course, once we were back, I was, slinging hash and cocktails and whatever again, because I knew how to do that in anywhere. And Russell was selling paintings, so that all worked out. And once we got back to San Diego, I walked into Sunbelt and said, hey, I should work here. And they agreed. So the rest is history. So
I think the famous line was, we have a win-win for you.
we have a win-win. We've got a win-win here. And now Watchfire 2 is currently up in Port Townsend, Washington, where we've been cruising for the last 2 seasons.
Is it ironic that it was Watchfire?
No, a lot of people wondered why we named the next boat Watchfire, but we're every sailor's superstitious, but we just like the name and we didn't want to change it.
You know, it might actually, for this crowd, the adventure crowd, you could quote that poem. It's really short. It's a little John
really
Masefield
short.
poem.
Okay.
This is 35 feet. But it's a big 35 feet. You know, there's small 35s and big 35. It's, there's the back end has got a 8-foot cabin and the front end has got a 7-foot cabin to sleep. And then, it's got.
Our cruising friends came onto it and said, you could play squash in here. This is a big boat.
Yeah.
It really is very right. Okay, so the quote goes, there is no solace for us, for such as we, who search for some hidden city we shall never see. Instead, there is only the road, the dawn and the wind and the rain and the watchfire under the stars, then sleep and the road again. Thank you.
Oh, I guess I don't have to call.
Oops. Ta-da. Now you can see
35
my
years.
desktop. So what we can do
I have
is,
no clue. Are
Yeah.
we way over time or under time? Or?
okay, I was going to say,
Questions?
yeah, I was just going to say, I'm sure people have questions. We don't like to stop in the middle because you never know, you'll go off on a tangent and forget where we are. But if there's questions people have about the sailing or about life or about anything else. Oh, where does the dog go potty on the boat?
Oh, good.
Everybody
good
wants
question.
to know. Well, we've had 2 boat dogs for 12 years each, 13 actually, the second one. And we've always, Charlie just learned to go forward of the mast. She was caught onto that pretty quickly. But with Reddy, our second dog, we actually got a thing of turf, a little AstroTurf. And, we just trained her to go on that. And that worked out. They didn't have any problem once they learned to do it. Male dogs are considerably more difficult to do this with because, especially if they've learned already to lift their leg like male dogs like to do, they don't want to do that on a boat because they're going to, fall over. So, with female dogs, it's like already a 3-point landing, so they're kind of braced. And Charlie actually went up on the bow of the boat in that Nicaragua anchorage where it was blowing 50 knots like all day and night. And I finally just said, you got to do it, girl. And I just shoved her up there and she was like, I'm far enough, I'm good. Because there was so much rain and wind and everything that it was
kind of
fine.
funny how she slid back
Yeah, it was
with
like,
the wind. It's like, it's very humorous.
They do, they learn to do it and then they're fine. They don't think anything of it. Oh, you just throw it overboard if you're out sailing, but otherwise you pick it up with a doggy bag, just like you were at the park, And then eventually you have a trash can that you're dying to get rid of. It'll come in and go like, oh, good, trash can, So, I know, it's not as romantic as you think that cruising is. Looking for things like trash cans and water hoses. Yeah. That's when you're looking for a dog. You're always looking for trash cans and water hoses.
That's right.
Not romantic, but it's real.
There you go.
And since we're coming up on May is going to be 35 years we've been married. So of that, I think we've been sailing 33 of them. So yeah, there's still an awful lot of romance.
Yeah.
And it's Valentine's Day.
We never did say the honeymoon stopped.
No.
So.
No, the honeymoon's continuing.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody to put an end to this honeymoon.
Yeah, there you go.
That's a lot of togetherness. What really helps is, especially nowadays that we're both full-time on the boat, full-time working on the boat, is things that have saved our sanity. One of them is that we're both working on projects that take us a million miles away. I'm working on the book, he's working on a book project, he's dealing with his kids at lovely San Diego City College, shout out. And I'm dealing with my clients, and then we, get together at happy hour like, oh wow, where have you been all day, And it doesn't feel like we're in each other's space all the time. Another thing is noise canceling headphones.
I was going to say.
Sorry, I ruined your line.
No, it's fine. Great.
When you're together, you always get
Well, no, not when
No,
we're
not
sitting
that.
together.
That
but
that will piss her off.
but
I've tried that.
like I might be on a phone call to Lisa talking about, a Sunbelt book, or I might be on a Zoom call with San Diego Writers Inc. or teaching students or something, and Russell's back there, listening to YouTube
Zeppelin.
things about Led Zeppelin, right? No, listening to, to YouTube University, because we're always
Def
going to
Leppard.
YouTube, like, how do I do this? So, that's life on a small boat.
Yeah.
It's close, but it's not too close. We always say, people, how do you get along on such a small boat? Look, if you really like each other, then you will be fine on a small boat. But if you don't want to spend 24 hours together, there isn't a yacht in the world that's big enough. I mean, you see big boats, and they're not happy because it's bigger. They're either happy or they're not,
And you get along like you do sailing a little boat day after day.
Exactly. The day sailor. Today and tomorrow and the next day.
That's true. You don't give it a lot of headspace.
It's best if you don't. No, we haven't, but that might be another, we took it up the coast during the whole COVID shutdown. So we were up in San Francisco for a year. We did the Delta for a year, and then we headed up to Washington. So we've been there the last couple seasons, and we're going to British Columbia in the spring and summer, or so we think. So
Yeah.
that's the latest plan.
And Alaska.
Yeah, they
Then
call
we'll,
they
then we'll be.
that first part of British Columbia is called the Sunshine Coast, and I was like, I'm there because my two favorite things are sunshine and coast. So you name it Sunshine Coast, and that's going to be my bucket list right there. So yeah, exactly, Exada. Okay, there you go. There's always somewhere new to go.
Well, I guess that's our adventure then, right?
Well done. Thank you,
Thanks.
guys. Thank you. So you're gonna be here signing books
Indeed.
and telling stories, more stories, and people can ask questions.
Oh yes,
can-
there are many stories that we have not told that are in the book.
All right. Oh, this book. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John.
So Jennifer's gonna be right here signing books. If you need books and stuff, help her here. We'll take everybody gladly and the team going. So thank you. 1 month from now, 13th of March, we have Cinema Sorbet. We're gonna go with Cinema to the Arctic for 19 months in a hut. So no moving around there, but it's gonna fascinate story. We're gonna learn a lot about polar bears. We're gonna learn a lot about the dogs. Where they go to the bathroom up there. It's going to be a really fun night, and so mark your calendars for Under the Wild Wednesday at Phoenix Brewing on March 13th. 2 weeks after that, we're going to go, even though it's not Halloween, we're going to go to Ghosts in the Wilderness. So just give it a look out there, and it'll be a lot of fun seeing some things, some animals and some wildlife that we've never maybe seen. They come out at night. So with that, thank you for being here for another Wild Wednesday, and we'll see you hopefully in a month, if not before. Thank you.